One of the reasons people are drawn to different boot camps, whether those are data science, data analytics, or coding boot camps, is because of job guarantees. Can't get a job? Then it's no risk. You'll get your money back, so you don't have to worry about that $15,000 or $20,000 that you're getting ready to spend. But is it really that simple? The reality of these data science bootcamp job guarantees is they're not quite as simple as they lead you to believe. And it's not just the data science bootcamps, it's the data analytics, the coding, the marketing, you name it. Any type of bootcamp that offers a job guarantee typically follows a same general format that is definitely in favor of the company and not in favor of the person taking the course. There are two main ways that a no-risk perk is advertised for boot camps. It typically comes in the form of either a job guarantee or an income share agreement. You might also see references to deferred tuition, which is something different entirely. We need to understand all three of these before we really dig into the job guarantee. So let's take a look. First, let's talk about deferred tuition or deferred payments. With deferred tuition, you don't pay anything up front, or at most you pay a deposit that's up to about 10% of the total cost of the program. You don't have to make any additional payments then until after you've left the program. For most people, this means completing the program, but if you drop out of the program or fail to finish in a certain period of time, you're still going to have to pay the money back. Usually there's a grace period, often 3 to 6 months after you finish or conclude, leave the program before you have to start making payments. Deferred tuition is fairly similar to student loans for a more traditional education. So if you went to college, you got a student loan, you'd probably pay a little bit up front. If not, regardless, whatever amount you owe, you have a grace period when you finish or leave, and then you start making regular payments until you repay. There's a certain amount of interest that is tacked onto that, and you can often prepay without any penalty. Deferred tuition can be really helpful when you can't afford the full lump sum payment up front, but you can afford in your monthly budget to be able to make the regular payments later on. What is an income share agreement? Similar to deferred tuition, you don't pay anything until after you leave the program, usually with some grace period. You typically have a deposit amount up front, as with really any of your other financing options, and then after you complete the program, if you hit a certain salary threshold, you make payments back into the program until you've hit a certain level of repayment or a certain number of payments. Each one is structured a little bit differently. Income share agreements are marketed as a no-risk option or a low-risk option because if you don't get a job making a certain amount of money after the boot camp, then you're not making any payments back. It's not quite that simple though, and I'll talk more about that in next week's video because I want to deep dive into all the nuances. Let's move on for now though to this week's video topic, which is job guarantees out of boot camps. Job guarantees are the other way that many boot camps advertise a no-risk environment to taking their course. If you can't get a job after you finish the program, then they'll give you back your money. I mentioned from the start though that this doesn't often work out. In fact, most companies that are offering job guarantees for their boot camp actually also advertise how low of a rate of job guarantee fulfillment that they have to pay out. They market this as a great thing. Hey, look, we've only ever paid out one job guarantee, or we've paid out 1 or 0.5% on our job guarantee. So it sounds great because how most people interpret that is everybody except for one person was able to get a job after they left the program, or 99% of people that leave the program end up getting a better job. But that's not what they're saying. What they're saying is there's been one person or 1% of people, whatever their number is, that have been able to meet all of the qualifications and they've actually had to reimburse that person. The reason that there are rarely payouts under the job guarantee is that the requirements to be able to get a repayment are usually quite difficult to meet for the length of time that you have to meet them. I want to look at and share with you the specifics of job guarantees for some popular boot camps. I'm not making this video to call out any particular company. I'm making this video to make people more aware of what's out there so they really understand what they're signing up for. Ideally, you're reading the fine print before you sign up for a boot camp or you're signing any paperwork, but we all know that that doesn't happen quite as often as it probably should. And when you go to find the details of these job guarantees, it's not uncommon to have to go through 3, 4, or more links to actually get down to the nitty-gritty information of what you have to do to be able to qualify for these job guarantees and get reimbursed. So first off, these job guarantees usually only apply when you've paid up front. So if you're looking at deferred tuition or an income share agreement, those usually aren't going to have any job guarantee with them. What this also means is that job guarantees are a refund. You have to front the money, you have to pay out of pocket, and then if they agree that you've met the criteria, you haven't been able to find a job, you might get reimbursed. I don't have a fundamental problem with this. It makes sense that you would have to pay upfront for what you're getting. Where I do have a little trouble is what they require and all of the details that are required to qualify for the job guarantee. It's a really selective refund option. There are 2 major pieces of information people should consider when they're looking at these job guarantees. The first is who is being accepted into the program. It's fairly common for some of the popular boot camps to accept people into the program that have, in a majority of cases, an advanced degree, a master's, even a doctorate in some field. And a lot of people tend to already have work experience. So if we just talk about data science and data analytics boot camps, if you look at the demographics of who is going into these programs, in some cases, over half of the people going into the boot camp already have at least a year of work experience in the field. So of course it's not going to be that difficult for them to find a new job coming out of the boot camp. They don't just have that boot camp to rely on, they already have that work experience. So that already starts to taint a little bit the information on how successful these boot camps are. I've noticed it's become increasingly difficult to find demographics on who is entering these programs. They used to be more widely available for most programs, and they've either been completely removed or buried so deeply that it's become more and more difficult to find information that gives you clarity about the things that are important. So maybe it's interesting to know how many men versus women are entering a program, but that doesn't necessarily tell you anything about your chances of getting a job at the end. It doesn't tell you anything about your chances of getting a job at the end. Whereas some of these previously published information demographics, like what type of work experience, what type of degrees do people have, that tends to give you some information on how do you stack up against the average bootcamp participant. So that's the first piece, who's actually going into the program, because that influences their success rate out of the program. The second piece then is what's actually required for the job guarantee. And in most cases, this is over a dozen different things. So let's break it down. We're going to look specifically at 2 different programs that are offering job guarantees. I'm going to just call them Program 1 and Program 2. I'm not going to name them. I'm sure you could figure out who they are if you did a little digging for some of the popular boot camps. But again, this isn't about the specific company. It's about the details of these job guarantees. Let's take a look at Program 1, and then after that I'll go quickly through Program 2 and talk about how it compares, because these are generally so standard that there's not going to be a major difference between them. For the first program, the guarantee period is 6 months after you are approved to complete the program. That means that in those 6 months, if you meet all the criteria, you're not able to find a job that fits their criteria of a qualifying job, then you're eligible to get a refund for your full tuition amount. In this program, there's also a potential to extend the job guarantee to 1 year in exceptional circumstances where national or local unemployment in a major metro area is greatly through the roof, if there's extenuating circumstances, etc. This is solely at the discretion of the company to extend, though. And while there's been a lot going on lately that you've maybe been affected by, They haven't extended this guarantee. So I'm not quite sure what it would take if right now, with what we've been dealing with, if they're not extending that job guarantee to 12 months under these exceptional circumstances. I'm not quite sure what it would take. Take that as what you will. I wouldn't ever think that they're going to extend this beyond a 6-month period. Let's get into the criteria now, and we're going to start with the things that seem very reasonable, that no one would question are things you should have to do. This first program offers boot camps throughout the US and Canada. So the first criteria is you have to be eligible to work in the US or Canada. That makes sense. Obviously, they're not going to have you come through this program, guarantee that you're going to find a job in one of those areas if you're not even eligible to work. You also have to be able to pass any background checks that might have to occur as part of the job search process. Again, this isn't really a surprise. Obviously, you need to be eligible to work in the location. You need to be able to meet the general requirements that any job is going to have. Now we get into criteria that starts to rule more people out. You have to have a bachelor's degree from an accredited educational institution. This isn't a problem for many people, and it's not field specific. So you could have a bachelor's degree in anything. It could be English, philosophy, math, physics. Regardless of what the degree is in, you have to have a bachelor's degree. This is common across every program that I looked at that had a job guarantee. This isn't going to rule out a lot of people, but it is going to rule out some people that either don't have a bachelor's degree or they didn't go to a college, university that was accredited, and so they're automatically ineligible for the job guarantee. The next requirement, you have to complete all the mandatory requirements for graduating from the program. That's an obvious one. So we'll move on to the next stage. One of the central criteria to these job guarantees is qualifying jobs. Qualifying jobs are the type of jobs that the company deems meet the criteria that they've laid out for you getting a job. Some of these are obvious. If you get a full-time position, then that's a qualifying job, and you've gotten a job, you don't qualify for the job guarantee. Full-time positions are anything that's 30 or more hours a week. So that's a fairly straightforward job definition. Maybe the 30 hours surprised you, but you're expecting a full-time job, that makes sense. You might be surprised to learn that even if you get a temp job or an internship that is expected to last 3 months or longer, this is considered a qualifying job, and you no longer are eligible for the refund based on the job guarantee. And the last one, and I think this is an interesting and slightly tricky one, is if you get any job offer that is temporary but has potential to become a full-time job, you also become ineligible for the job guarantee. So you could be working a 3-month temp job. You could maybe get an internship, a summer internship, and you've paid $15,000 to $20,000 for this program. You're no longer eligible for the job guarantee. Already we're getting into some criteria that is going to surprise a lot of people, like that 3-month temp job, meaning that you're out of pocket the money for the boot camp. You have a job that's very temporary, but you're not eligible to get your money back. Moving on. The next criteria for this program's job guarantee is that you have to do a job search in a particular metro area. I'll put on screen a map right now of the eligible metro areas where you're allowed to look for jobs. You are also only allowed to pick one metro area to look in. So if you're maybe not located close to these or you're open to moving, tough luck. You need to pick one of these, and that's where you concentrate your job search. If you change your metro area or you change your job search strategy during the 6-month period, no longer eligible. Then once you've picked your metro area where you're going to concentrate your job search for the next 6 months, there's some criteria that you're going to need to meet every week and every month to continue to be eligible for the job guarantee. You'll need to apply to 4 different positions every week within the metro area you've selected that are closely connected with the bootcamp program that you went through, whether that's data science, data analytics, coding, what have you. You'll also need to reach out to 7 different people each week to build connections and do 2 informational interviews per month. For this program, reaching out includes LinkedIn messaging, meetups, emails, things like that. So they're fairly open about what it means to make those connections. You'll need to schedule and attend regular calls with a career counselor from their program. I think this is a very reasonable requirement to have, that if you're providing resources as a company to people going through this bootcamp, then people need to be utilizing those resources. In addition to those meetings, you'll need to report every week all of the work that you've done towards those other activities, details about those 4 job applications, the people you connected with, and then your 2 informational interviews every month. You'll have to load them into their tool so that they can see what you've been doing. These criteria probably don't sound too bad to start out with, but really think about what that means over a 6-month period. That means from now for the next 6 months, you get no weeks off. If you miss a week, you're ineligible. So what do we have coming up over the next few months? Let's say you want to take a week off over a holiday. You want to take a week off over New Year, over Christmas, what have you. If you're watching this video in the spring or summer, maybe you want to take a week off to go on vacation. Doesn't matter, you still need to be submitting all of these applications, filling out the tool every week. This is an achievable thing to do, and I can understand why they want you to keep with that regular pace. Just keep in mind that you can't have a bad week. You can't have a week where you're too busy at work to focus on this, because otherwise you miss out on that job guarantee. You can't turn down a job that meets the qualifying job criteria, but you might be surprised to learn that you also can't accept any job that doesn't meet their qualifications. So if you're not working right now and you're looking at a temp job because you need to pay your bills, or you are working and while you're looking for an analytics role, you decide, hey, I need to step into a new role, or I want to do something that pays more or I find more interesting. If you do it during that 6-month period, you void the job guarantee. You also void the job guarantee if you become physically or mentally unable to keep up with the job search criteria to continue that job search. So if you get injured, if you get sick, you get a bad flu for a week, you catch, I don't know, something else that's been going on around the world, then you can't stop the job search or you lose the job guarantee. So you're penalized for getting ill. You can apply for a 6-month suspension, but this is entirely at the discretion of the company, and you still are held to some of the criteria. Like if you get a job offer that meets their qualifying jobs in that 6-month suspended time period, you still have to accept it or void the job guarantee. So these are all things to keep in mind. There are additional, what I would consider more minor points that are part of the guarantee that we're not going to dig into, but these are all things that are part of this one program's job guarantee to potentially get your money back if you're not able to find a job that they deem as qualifying. That's program 1. So let's talk about program 2, because I mentioned these are similar, but I think it's interesting to quickly run through the criteria on a second program just to show you how similar they are. So the second program also has a 6-month guarantee. They don't have any ability to extend the period or put it on hold. The second program is based only in the US, so you have to be eligible to work in the US. You have to be able to pass the background checks like the first program, and you have to have a bachelor's degree in any field by the time you complete the program, just like the first one. Program 2 has the same qualifying job criteria. That is full or temp jobs, 30 hours a week or more, where any temp job lasts at least 3 months, or jobs that have potential to go from temp to full-time. There's also an approved location list with this program, but in this case, you don't just concentrate your job search in an area, you actually have to be physically located. You have to live within an hour of one of their metro areas. They're largely the same, though there are a few slightly different locations, additional locations on the program 2 list of approved locations. qualifications. The rest of the criteria have some slight differences, but overall aren't that much different. So where the first program you had to apply to 4 jobs a week, the second program you need to apply to 10 jobs per week. You'll also need to attend 5 networking events per month. Their networking requirement is to attend 5 networking events per month. There's no specific connection or informational interview criteria like the first program. But interestingly, they're very specific about these are events that you need to attend, which may have been difficult this year for many people because of a large number that were canceled, or maybe a limited number to begin with in the metro area that you're looking at. Similar to Program 1, you'll meet with a program coach. You'll need to document everything within their systems. You can't move to a different metro area during your search. I also noticed that remote jobs aren't mentioned. I don't remember if I said it on Program 1, but Program 1 allows remote jobs to be part of your search, whereas Program 2 is very specific to the metro area that you're living in. Everything else is pretty much the same, have been all of the criteria, most of the criteria in Program 2 versus Program 1. Does all of this mean that you should avoid boot camps that have job guarantees, though? No, not necessarily. What it does mean is that if you're looking at a job guarantee linked to a boot camp as a no-risk option where you're definitely going to find full-time employment or you're going to get your money back, I'd caution you that it's not that simple. That the difficulty of getting your money back is going to take a lot of work. This doesn't mean that you can't do it. What it does mean is that if you're going to pick a boot camp to attend, don't let the job guarantee carry a lot of weight in which program you choose, because there's a very high chance that regardless of what you do, you're not going to be eligible for that job guarantee, or you're going to get a job that really doesn't fit what you were expecting you would get out of the boot camp. You're going to get a temp job, you're going to get an internship. Maybe you do get a full-time job, and that's awesome. That's the goal, that you would step into a full-time role, that you'd be working in analytics when you're done, or as a programmer, or a marketer, or whatever the boot camp is that you're attending. Just be cautious when you're looking at these that you're not putting a lot of weight, that you're going to spend this $15,000, this $20,000, and then at the end, let's say you go through a 12-week program, that 9 months from now, that you're going to get your money back if you don't have the ideal job that you were thinking that you were going to be able to step into after this program. Be aware of what you're getting yourself into. Read the details of that job guarantee that you're looking at. These really are meant more as a marketing tool than they're meant to be a way to refund people money if things don't work out quite like they were expecting. I've worked with a lot of people that have gone through boot camps, come out the other end, and haven't been able to get a job. That's boot camps that have job guarantees and ones that don't. I've worked with people that have gotten temp jobs for 3 months that didn't remotely begin to pay for the program that they just went through, and now they're having a hard time stepping into a full-time role that's making the types of money that these programs are advertising that you're going to be able to make. So be aware, be cautious, know what you're signing up for when you get yourself into it. Next week, I'm going to dig into income share agreements. They also sound very appealing. They're a popular marketing tool for some of these different programs, but they're not without their own catches. Thanks so much for watching. If you found this video useful, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing. I'll see you next week.